You did not stumble upon this voice by chance. This is not a random video drifting across your timeline, not just a moment of curiosity. It is an invitation written long ago in your soul, long before you understood the idea of destiny. Before you even knew pain, a hand had already chosen you, not to grant you power or fame, but to awaken within you the memory of the original light you carry. And tonight, when your heart grows still in the space between two breaths, that calling rises again, clear and gentle, yet impossible to ignore. Perhaps you have often felt different. Among loud conversations, you stay silent. Among laughter, you see the sadness behind people's eyes. Many times you have asked God, why do I feel so deeply? Why do I notice things others overlook? And the answer always comes in the form of trials, repeated dreams, sleepless nights, the feeling that something is watching you, calling your name in the dark. No one understands, and sometimes even you do not want to believe. But the truth is, you have been guided here, not to be afraid, but to remember who you are. Psalm 25:14 says, "The Lord confides in those who fear him." Those words are not only for the past, they belong to your present moment. When your soul trembles before something holy that you cannot explain, it is the sign that this covenant is being revealed. Not through rituals, not through words, but through silence. Everything you once called delay or failure was a careful arrangement. God never lets you arrive late. He brings you to the exact moment when your heart is humble enough to hear his voice. Remember those times you looked up at the sky and felt something move within you, though you could not name it. Maybe it was when you lost someone, when your plans fell apart, or when you sat alone in a quiet room and felt that the world was not deep enough to hold your soul. In those moments, God was speaking through silence. He does not shout, he whispers. Not everyone can hear, and that is why you were chosen. He does not give this task to those who seek applause, but to those who dare to walk through the dark without light, believing the light is still there. Sometimes you think you have been abandoned, your prayers unanswered, your dreams fading away. But look closer. Every time you thought you hit bottom, some small strength helped you rise again. No one knows how many times you wanted to give up, yet you kept going. No one saw the tears hidden beneath your smile, but they were not meaningless. Every moment was recorded. Every fall was a lesson in humility. Every wound a doorway, leading back to your true origin. For a long time, God has been shaping you in silence, like a blacksmith forging steel in fire. He has not only tested your strength, but your faithfulness. He wants to know, when no one stands beside you, when the world grows silent, will you still believe in him? Every season of hardship is not his judgment, but his refinement. Like a blade that gleams only when sharpened on stone, your light begins to rise through this process. You are not becoming someone else. You are returning to the being God created from the beginning. When you feel lost between faith and doubt, know that you stand at the threshold between old and new. God is calling you out of the old ways, where people speak of him with the language of power but forget the spirit of love. He does not dwell within walls of cold stone. He lives in your breath, your gaze, the rhythm of your heart. That connection cannot be controlled by anyone else. You need no permission. You were chosen from the beginning of time. Look within yourself, not with judgment, but with compassion. The scars on your soul are proof that you have lived, endured, and loved. God does not choose the perfect. He chooses the broken, so that through them his light can shine. Your weakness is the vessel for his grace, and within that humility, divine strength begins to rise, quietly, deeply, unstoppable. One day you will understand that nothing that happened was random. The people who left, the roads that closed, even the doors that seemed forever shut, all were notes in the symphony God is writing. He never works in haste. He forms mountains with time, oceans with patience, and your soul with silence. So if you find yourself in a pause, do not fear. The pause is not the end. It is the breath of the universe. The moment he places his hand upon your shoulder and whispers, "Be still, for I am working." That feeling of not belonging anywhere is an invitation from heaven. You do not belong to the old world. You were born to carry new light. Let yourself stop and listen, not to find answers, but to discover the real question. When you begin to listen to silence, silence will begin to answer you. And then, in that stillness that seems empty, you will hear his voice. not outside you, but within your own chest. This is the beginning of the journey of the chosen one. Not a race to be seen, but a return of the soul to its first calling. When all noise fades, only your heartbeat and the echo of eternity remain. That is where God waits for you, between silence, between light and shadow, between loss and hope. He does not rush. He does not force. He simply extends his hand and waits for you to say, "I am ready." If your heart trembles as you hear these words, do not silence it. It is not a passing emotion. It is your soul remembering its covenant. God has called, and you have heard. And from this moment on, everything will begin to change. Not with thunder, but with a breath that holds the whole universe, whispering that you are not alone. You have never been forgotten. You are being prepared for something greater, deeper, and truer than anything you have ever known. Because before God makes you shine before the world, He will first make you quiet before yourself. In that stillness, you will realize you no longer seek Him. You are in Him, and He is in you. And that is the true beginning of every miracle. You once believed that the holiest place must be the church, that those who spoke in the name of God must surely understand Him better than you. But through the years, your soul began to feel a quiet unease. In the echo of passionate sermons, you heard an emptiness, not of space, but of truth. Something felt wrong, though you dared not say it. They preached about love, but their eyes were calculating. They spoke of humility, yet stood with pride. They mentioned forgiveness, but their lips trembled with judgment. And when you saw that, you began to notice the walls they built, not of stone, but of fear. They told you that you must believe as they do, that only those who obey them would be saved. They created endless rituals and rules, calling it obedience, but you could feel it. Something in this faith was being traded away. They told you to be humble, but the humility they taught was blind submission. They told you to sacrifice, but the sacrifice they demanded was your soul, your freedom, your ability to think, your ability to hear God through your own heart. And then you understood. Religion can look like God, but not always contain Him. The world you once trusted now appeared like a stage. The light of fame shone on familiar faces as they stood there, preaching humility while counting followers. Beautiful rituals turned into tools of control. Prayers became performances. God was placed behind glass, displayed as proof of status. You saw those who were praised, but their souls were empty. You saw those who were silent, yet true light lived in their eyes. And in that moment, you realized you could no longer bow before golden thrones, for your God does not dwell there. Your God needs no title. He does not reside in temples built by human hands. He lives where no one wants to look, in the weary heart, in the quiet tear, in the trembling hands of those who still believe when there is nothing left to believe in. You saw this truth, and it set you apart. They called you rebellious, accused you of abandoning your faith. But in silence, you knew you had not left God. You had only stepped out of His cage. Once, you stood among the crowd, listening to a sermon about holiness. They said that to be loved, you must submit. To be forgiven, you must bow before them. But within you, another voice spoke, soft yet clear. My love needs no condition. And that voice was stronger than any sermon. It made you tremble, not with fear, but with the knowing that you had just heard the voice of God, not through another, but directly within yourself. You began to step away from the heavy rituals. You stopped repeating memorized prayers and replaced them with honest words, sometimes messy, sometimes silent. And in that honesty, you began to feel Him closer than ever before. No distance between human and divine, only understanding. God does not love you because you are perfect. He loves you because He sees the light He placed within you from the beginning, the light no doctrine can extinguish. Psalm 37:4 says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." That does not mean God grants wishes on demand. It means that when your heart truly delights in Him, your desires no longer belong to the small self, but to the greatness of your soul. Personal wants melt into divine will, and then you no longer need to ask. You simply listen. You begin to see that God builds His kingdom, not through fear or power, but through love and freedom. Those who manipulate faith may build grand castles, but they are hollow inside. God is not there. He is within the souls who dare to love Him without fear of punishment, who dare to trust Him without needing proof. And you, the one hearing these words, are among the few. You do not know it because someone told you, but because you feel it in your bones. You cannot go back, for the light has already been lit. And when you look at the world again, you start to see the invisible chains binding people. They repeat prayers, but their hearts are closed. They bow, not in reverence, but in fear. They seek God in books and doctrines, forgetting He already lives within them. You see this, and your heart aches. Yet within that pain, you hear the call, "Stand up, my child." When God chooses you, He does not need anyone's approval. He does not care whether you are accepted. He only asks if you will stand in truth, and that truth will make you misunderstood, rejected, even condemned. But that is the price of light. A lamp cannot stay hidden in the dark forever. It must shine, even if its light exposes what others want to conceal. From that moment, you no longer belong to the old system. You become a traveler of the soul, one who seeks God in the wind, in the rain, in every breath of life. You will be lonely, yet free. You will be doubted, yet at peace. And on that journey, you will see that God has never left your side. Even if the world collapses, even if people forget you, He walks beside you still. Like a father watching over the wandering child He never stopped loving. You may not know where you are going, but do not be afraid. Every step you take in solitude brings you closer to Him. Every time you choose truth over comfort, faith over fear, you break another chain of illusion. And slowly, when you look back, you will see that the rejection of the world led you to the acceptance of heaven. When they closed their doors, God opened a new gate, because He does not need you to be the most religious, only the most sincere. God does not seek clean hands, but hearts that weep for justice. And in that sincerity, you become a reflection of His love, a love built not on power, but on freedom. So when you hear these words, know that you are not taken out of the system to be lost, but to be reborn. God set you apart not because you were unworthy, but because that system was too small to hold your light. You were chosen not to obey, but to illuminate. And in the stillness, He whispers, "Do not fear, I am here." That is the beginning of true freedom. When you realize God is not on the pulpit, but in the beating heart within you. When you begin to step out of the old system, the world does not welcome you with silence. They do not understand you, and because they do not understand, they fear you. Those who once called you brother, who once held your hands in prayer, now look at you with suspicion. They say you have lost your way, that you have been deceived by your own soul. They tell you to return, to bow, to ask for forgiveness. But deep in your heart, you know that if you bow again, you will lose yourself. So, you choose silence. Not to rebel, but to protect the fragile flame now burning within you. Those days are hard. No one stands beside you. No one listens. Every word you speak meets resistance, yet something inside you keeps whispering, "Do not fear. I am walking with you through the fire." At first, you think it is your imagination, but slowly, you begin to sense it clearly. A warm, patient, unshakable presence. Every night you cry, He is there. Every morning you rise, He is there. In your weakest moments, you realize you have never been abandoned. You are being refined. The fire of God does not destroy. It burns away what is false, borrowed beliefs, outdated definitions, and artificial fears. That fire hurts, but it also frees you. Every accusation from others becomes small next to the confirmation that comes from heaven. He is turning your shame into a robe of power. He is taking your wounds and weaving them into light, and you begin to understand. Rejection is not the end. It is the sacred beginning of a new journey. There are nights when you ask, "Why must it be this lonely?" And in the emptiness, the answer rises. Because only in loneliness can you hear me. When all the noise of the world fades, His voice becomes clear. No longer hidden beneath judgment or meaningless advice, you hear the raw truth that God does not need you to be perfect. He only needs you to be real. And that truth breaks you, but it also sets you free. Because when you have nothing left to hide, you can stand before Him as you are, fragile, weary, but still believing. Sometimes you look at those who have hurt you, and instead of anger, you feel compassion. You realize they too are souls lost within the system. bound by fears they do not understand. They judge because they fear losing control, because your light threatens to reveal their shadows. And so, you forgive. Not because they deserve it, but because you no longer want to carry the weight. Forgiveness does not make you weak. It makes you free. For forgiveness is the act of a strong soul, one that understands every wound can become a doorway to grace. Psalm 66:10 says, "For you, O God, have tested us. You have refined us as silver is refined." And truly, you are being refined, not to be better than others, but to become exactly what He intended. Every word spoken against you, every door that slams shut, every pain too deep to explain, all are flames that purify your soul. And you slowly learn that no fire can burn one who has learned to burn with it. One morning, you wake after a night of tears, and you see sunlight breaking through the curtain. The dawn has never looked so beautiful. Something has changed in you, not on the outside, but within. A strange peace spreads through you, as if every wound has been washed clean. You realize you no longer need recognition. The only approval that matters comes from heaven, not from the world. And in that moment, you are free. When the soul is free, you no longer need to prove anything. You simply want to share, not through convincing words, but through your presence. Your very energy becomes a living testimony. And if someone hears these words and feels the same stirring in their heart, it is not by chance. Your soul is answering the call. Leave a small sign, a comment, a message, even a silent thought, as a way to tell the universe, I am awakening too. Not to be seen, but to connect. For light spreads not through persuasion, but through resonance. Along this journey, you learn the deepest lesson of all. Silence is also prayer. When words are no longer enough, just sit, breathe, and feel His presence. Sometimes the tears that fall are the language of the soul, a language that needs no translation. You do not need to act strong. God does not love you because you are perfect. He loves you because, even among the ashes, you still choose to believe. And one day, when all the storms have quieted, you will understand why you had to walk through it all. No one can carry the message of light without first knowing the depth of darkness. It was the darkness that taught you to recognize the faintest spark. It was loneliness that taught you to treasure presence. It was rejection that taught you to love without expecting return. And within loss itself, you learned to see God, not far above, but right within the pain of being human. You begin to feel your soul move differently, no longer trembling before judgment, no longer shaken by noise. You no longer need to hide from the dark, for now you know how to walk through it. Every step you take is a quiet declaration. He is still here. The fire in you is no longer the fire of fear, but the fire of love. And from that love, you begin to shine, not brightly, but deeply. Others may still not understand, but it no longer matters. God understands. And sometimes that is all you need. He does not ask you to be perfect. He only wants you to be brave enough to continue. Even when you cannot see the way, take one more step, for He is leading. Every step in the darkness is an act of faith, and that faith is rewriting your destiny. So if today you are misunderstood, rejected, or alone, do not see it as failure. See it as a sacred cleansing. God is stripping away everything that does not belong to you, revealing the true light He placed within you from the beginning. And when that light rises, no force can extinguish it. For before God lifts you up, He will let you fall. Before He gives you a name, He will let you be forgotten. Before you are honored, you must walk through fire. But once you have walked through that fire, you will never be the same. You will emerge, not bitter, not proud, but calm, like one who has touched grace. And that is the true baptism of the soul. Rebirth through fire, where from the ashes, a new creation is born. After walking through the fire, you emerge with different eyes. The world around you remains the same, with the same streets, the same faces, the same familiar sounds. Yet the way you see everything has changed. Something inside your heart has broken, but instead of being destroyed, it is deepened, softened, and brightened. Like a cracked ceramic vase mended with gold, every fracture now reflects a new light. You no longer try to return to who you once were, because you understand the old has died, and that death was necessary for the new to be born. You begin to see the traces of God's hand everywhere. In the song of morning birds, in the light reflected on a drop of water, in the brief smile of a passing stranger. Everything suddenly feels meaningful, as if the universe is speaking one language, the language of guidance. Each time you think you have gone off course, something small happens to remind you that you are still being led. A random word, a book that opens to the exact page, a melody that makes your heart tremble. All of them are signs. There are no more coincidences, only divine appointments you are finally ready to recognize. Psalm 147:3 says, "He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds." That verse has become your breath now, because you have lived it, not in theory, but in experience. You know what it feels like for your heart to break so deeply that only God could reach it. And now, the place that once held your deepest pain has become your strongest source of light. He did not repair you to make you who you were. He recreated you to become who you were meant to be. A soul that can love without condition, trust without proof. As your soul begins to awaken, you feel a different kind of peace. Not loud, not thrilling, but calm like still water. This peace does not depend on circumstances and cannot be taken by anyone. It is grace, something that only arrives after you have endured enough to understand its value. And in that peace, you begin to hear God's voice more clearly, not in thunderous preaching, but in a gentle whisper. I am still here. I have never left you. Each day, He rebuilds you a little more, not with sudden miracles, but with small, patient steps. You learn again how to trust, how to love, how to see life as a gift instead of a burden. You are surprised to realize that what once terrified you no longer holds power. The wounds that once closed your heart now make you more compassionate. You begin to look at those who hurt you with different eyes. You no longer need to retaliate because you know they act from their own pain. Forgiveness becomes your natural breath, not out of weakness, but because you now see far enough to understand that every soul is struggling with itself. One morning, you see the number 111 appear again, this time on your phone screen, exactly as you were praying. The first time you saw it, you were just curious, but now you understand. It is a prophetic seal, a sign from heaven that a new chapter is beginning. 111 is the number of new beginnings, the alignment between the soul and divine light. It is not a hollow promise, but the heartbeat of an opening door. When you see that number, pause, take a deep breath, and know that God is saying, keep going. I am here. If you are hearing this and your soul stirs when you hear 111, it is not a coincidence. Share it, not to boast, but as a way to tell the universe, I am ready for the new beginning. Because every soul that resonates with light raises the frequency of the world. And you, the one who has walked through darkness, are now the light someone else needs. Looking back, you realize that every breaking was God rewriting your story in His own script. Without the fire, you would not have learned humility. Without loneliness, you would not have learned to listen. Without rejection, you would not have known unconditional love. Every wound is a window. Every mistake is a stepping stone. Nothing is wasted in God's hands, not even pain. Then you begin to forgive yourself. For years, you carried regret, guilt, and endless what-ifs. But now you understand, you do not have to be perfect to be loved. He never loved you because you were right. He loved you because you are His. When you open your heart to that truth, tears fall, but they are no longer bitter. They are tears of release. When the soul finally allows itself to rest in the arms of unconditional love. One evening, you look out the window and see the sky washed clean after rain. The moonlight covers everything with a soft, gentle glow. In that moment, you realize, this is you, after everything. No longer heavy, no longer afraid. You are the dawn after the storm, the flower rising from ashes. And as your heart beats in rhythm with the universe, you understand that God never left you. He only led you through the rough road so you could see Him more clearly. This reconstruction not only changes how you see the world, it changes how the world reflects you. People begin to notice something different in your eyes, a light they cannot explain, a peace they long to find, and they will ask, what happened to you? Then you will simply smile and say, I walked through the fire and I found God in the ashes. That is a truth that cannot be hidden. When the soul is healed, it shines effortlessly. And in that moment, God whispers, now you are ready. But before I lift you, you must learn one more lesson, the lesson of stillness. And so, the journey enters a new season. The season the world calls silence, but heaven calls preparation. Because before a flower blooms, it must close its petals. Before light is revealed, it must rest in darkness. And you, the chosen one, are now stepping into that sacred season of divine stillness. There comes a time, after the fire has quieted, when nothing seems to happen. No miracles, no calling, no sign from heaven. Everything grows so still that you begin to wonder, has God forgotten me? The dreams that once burned bright now seem covered in dust. The prayers feel heavy. You wake each morning without the spark that once kept you alive through the darkness. This is the stage when many souls think they have lost their faith. But in truth, it is the holiest moment of the journey. Because this is not the silence of absence, it is the silence of preparation. God is placing you in a quiet land where there is no noise of the world, no applause, no judgment. He is not hiding you. He is protecting you. This silence is a sacred cocoon, where the caterpillar isolates itself before becoming a butterfly. If you break the cocoon too soon, the wings will never be strong enough to fly. So God holds you there, not to punish, but to strengthen your soul. In the stillness, the roots of faith grow deeper so that when storms come, you will not be uprooted. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." That verse is not just a reminder, it is a command of grace, because only in stillness can you recognize who is truly speaking. When all the echoes of the ego fade, you begin to hear the voice of the Creator, not through words, but through presence. He speaks through wind, through breath, through the steady beat of your heart. And then you understand that this silence is not empty. It is full of life, full of love, full of light that only a quiet soul can perceive. The days spent in stillness teach you something you never understood before. Peace is not the result. It is the foundation. You do not have to reach it. You only have to stop long enough to see it was there all along. When you stop searching, it appears. When you stop pleading, it answers. In that pause, you begin to hear God's whisper more clearly than ever before. Not urging, not commanding, only a gentle flow saying, "I am working. Trust me." The world outside keeps spinning. People still chase applause, praise, and illusions of success. But God draws you out of that whirlwind and places you at the center of silence. There, you learn to wait without impatience, to love without demand, to pray without words. You begin to sense that every moment, even the smallest one, holds sacred meaning. A falling leaf, a ray of sunlight on the wall, a gentle breeze, all become living prayers. You start to live with the awareness that everything is holy, and you no longer need to go far to find God. Some nights, loneliness arrives like mist, but instead of running, you sit still and let it surround you. You begin to understand that loneliness is not an enemy, but a teacher. In loneliness, you face yourself. No roles, no masks. And when you dare to look into that emptiness, you see that God is right there within it, waiting for you to realize He never left. One morning, you wake earlier than usual. Nothing special has happened, yet the air feels different. The quiet stillness of dawn before the world awakens. As you breathe, you realize every breath carries a trace of grace. That is when you understand. This is not delay. This is preparation. Like a farmer who sows seeds without seeing sprouts right away, you are also being planted, not to bloom today, but to blossom in the season God has chosen. The number 444 begins to appear around you, on receipts, on clocks, in dreams. At first you smile, thinking it is coincidence, but your soul senses something deeper. 444 is the sign of a solid foundation, of divine protection. It means the angels are standing around you, forming a circle of light. You are not forgotten. You are sheltered. Every quiet moment is a stone God is laying to build the foundation for what comes next. If the number 444 brings you peace, let it be your confirmation that you are exactly where you need to be. And if you are hearing this now, perhaps you are in that very season, the silent stage where no one understands you, where nothing seems to move forward. But remember, every silence has its rhythm. This is not the end, but the prelude. God is writing the next chapter in invisible ink, and when the page is ready, He will reveal the full picture. Let your soul rest, like a seed buried deep in the earth. trusting that spring is on its way. Psalm 62:1 says, "My soul finds rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him." That verse sounds like a lullaby for weary souls. You do not need to do more to be worthy. You only need to rest in Him. And in that rest, the miracle begins. Because it is when you stop striving that God can finally move freely within you. One day, you will look back and realize that this season of emptiness was actually the most important part of your journey. This was the time when God planted roots deep within you, unseen by others, but strong enough to hold you steady when the storms come. Hold this silence as a sacred gift, because only in stillness can you hear the truest sound, the voice of God, the voice of your own soul, and the heartbeat pulsing with the rhythm of the universe. So do not fear the silence. Do not rush to escape it. Stay, breathe, and know that you are being prepared for something greater. When the time comes, God will open the door, and you will step out, not as the one who waited, but as the one transformed. And the world, though unaware of what has happened, will feel it. A soul has emerged from the stillness, carrying the breath of heaven within. Then one morning, after what felt like endless stillness, you sense that something has changed. Not in the world around you, but deep within your soul. Like a lake after a storm, the surface begins to calm, reflecting the sky more clearly than ever before. You no longer fear silence. You've learned to live within it, to love it, and to let it become your own voice. That is when God begins to move. He does not announce Himself, nor does He make a sound. He comes like the first wind of a new season, so gentle that if you do not listen with your heart, you might miss Him. But you know, you've been trained to recognize Him in the subtlest of movements. The world around you begins to open doors that once seemed locked forever, not through sudden miracles, but through opportunities born of patience. Everything you once called failure turns out to be preparation. Every delay that once frustrated you now reveals itself as perfect timing. You realize God was never silent. He was building the foundation beneath the surface. And now that the foundation is firm, He begins to raise something new. He speaks to you not through thunder or storms, but through peace. Peace has become the clearest sign of His guidance. Wherever your soul feels calm, that is where He is leading you. And wherever unease remains, no matter how bright or attractive it looks, that place is not yours. For now, you no longer walk by sight, but by spirit. Psalm 32:8 says, "I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you." That verse becomes a whisper in your mind whenever you begin to doubt yourself, because in this season, every step is ordained. No action is meaningless. No day is wasted. Every detail, the people you meet, the dreams you have, the intuition that stirs within you is part of the greater design He is weaving. And within this quiet flow, you begin to see another truth. Not every open door is meant for you. Some opportunities appear only to test if you are ready to refuse what is right in timing, but wrong in purpose. God does not want you to chase every light. He wants you to choose His light. So He teaches you patience, teaches you to follow true calling instead of false applause. He teaches you to discern between being called and being tempted. The number 444 still appears again and again, like a gentle reminder. It is no longer just a symbol. It has become the heartbeat of your path. Each time you see it, it says, "Be at peace. You are protected." 444 represents the foundation of light, the stability of the soul. It is a sign that angels surround you, strengthening your spirit, so you will not be shaken as the world begins to move faster. If you see 444 inches these days, take it as a promise that you are not alone. Then one day, you begin to feel a surge of energy within you, not the restless excitement of the past, but a quiet strength. You no longer need to run. You are being carried by divine flow. The things you once prayed for now come naturally, not because you are more skilled, but because you have become aligned. Everything unfolds at the right time, with the right people, in the right way. God is never in a hurry, but He is always on time. The world begins to notice you. Those who once overlooked you now start to listen. But unlike before, you no longer feel the need to prove anything. The light within you does not try to shine. It simply is. And it is that quiet presence that makes people pause. They may not understand what has changed, but they can feel it, the vibration of a soul refined by grace. You begin to understand why God kept you in silence for so long. because if he had brought you into the light too soon, that light would have consumed you. Now you are strong enough to stand in it without being blinded. Like gold refined in fire, you have walked through the heat so you can reflect his light without melting. That was the purpose of every trial, to make you unshakable, no longer ruled by praise, no longer crushed by silence. Psalm 37:7 echoes in your heart. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when others seem to prosper. The verse takes on new meaning. It reminds you that not everyone moves at the same pace. Some rise quickly, but burn out just as fast. You, who were kept in the shadows longer, will carry a light that endures, a light that reaches deeper, touching more souls. At times, you still hear a small voice of doubt asking, "Am I truly ready?" But then peace washes over you, as if God smiles and answers, "I did not choose you because you were ready. I chose you so that I could prepare you." Those words, soft as breath, bring tears to your eyes, because now you understand you never needed to become enough. You have always been enough in his eyes. So, you stop resisting. You begin to trust the divine rhythm. You move slower, speak less, but feel more. Everything you do becomes an act of faith, cooking, working, walking, breathing. Every moment becomes a prayer. Every step a quiet amen rising to heaven. You no longer chase the great moment, because now you know the great moment is not in the future. It is happening right now, in your breath, in your gratitude, in your choice to believe before you see. That faith itself is the doorway to your new chapter of destiny. Remember, God never lifts you to display your light. He lifts you so his light can be seen through you. And that light shines brightest only when it has been nurtured through years of silence you once thought meaningless. Your journey is changing seasons. You are no longer hidden. The door is opening, and the world is about to witness what only you and God have known all along. Your time has come. But before you step forward, he whispers, "Remember, you are lifted not to be admired, but to lead." And you nod. No more fear, no more doubt, because now you understand every silence, every fire, every tear was only preparation for this moment. The moment when light begins to move not just through you, but from you. When the time of preparation comes to an end, you feel a new energy flowing into your life, like a warm breeze from afar, carrying the scent of harvest. The sense of delay is gone. The long, silent days are behind you. Everything begins to move. The things you once prayed for through tears now appear, not loudly, not suddenly, but naturally, as if the world had been waiting to welcome you. You understand that this is not a reward, it is a revelation. The moment God decides your light is ready to be seen, you start to notice a change in how people look at you. They sense something in you, not in appearance, but in the quiet energy that radiates from within. A peace they cannot name, yet cannot ignore. They do not know what you have walked through, but their souls recognize that you carry the mark of heaven. And then, opportunities arise. Doors that once seemed locked open easily. Invitations come from places you never expected. But strangely, you no longer feel the urge to rush or prove yourself, because now you know that true light does not strive to shine. It simply shines. Matthew 5:14 says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." Those words once made you afraid because you thought you were not enough. Now they make you smile because you know the light does not create itself. It is lit. And the flame within you is the very flame God tended in silence all those years. No one can extinguish it because it does not belong to you. It belongs to him. As your light spreads, you realize not everyone will welcome it. Some who once felt close now look at you differently, with suspicion, envy, even fear. They see the light you carry, but in it, they also see their own shadows. And so they may try to pull you down, to say you have changed, that you have become proud, but you no longer react. You understand that resistance is the confirmation of calling. When God lifts you, darkness will respond. It never attacks the harmless. It only challenges those who carry light. You begin to learn a new lesson, the lesson of humility in the light. When people notice you, when praise begins to come, when recognition becomes real, remember one thing: the light never belongs to the lamp. It only passes through it. You are the lamp, and God is the source. As long as you keep that humility, The light will never fade, but light also brings its own test. It reveals everything still unfinished within you. Like sunlight on glass, every crack becomes visible. You will see parts of yourself you thought were healed, but still tremble. Temptation returns, not as pain this time, but as glory. People will flatter you, give you titles, call you special, chosen, and if you are not careful, you might begin to believe it. But in that moment, remember this: the light does not come to lift the lamp, it comes to guide others. You will find yourself standing between two worlds, one of the soul refined by grace, and one of the noise of fame. Between these worlds, you must stay centered. Lean neither toward praise nor toward criticism. God does not want you to withdraw from the world. He wants you to stand within it without being consumed by it. He wants you to be proof that a person can live in light amid darkness and still remain true. Psalm 18:28 says, "You, Lord, keep my lamp burning. My God turns my darkness into light." And indeed, as you look back, you see that He lit that lamp in your heart long ago. Every mistake, every stumble, every dark corner that once brought you shame has now become a mirror for His light. For only those who have walked through darkness can truly know the value of light. In this season, you may feel a heavy sense of responsibility, not from fear of failure, but from the awareness that you are carrying something sacred beyond yourself. You will want to do right, to honor what God has entrusted to you, but He whispers, "I do not need you perfect. I need you real." Those words bring peace. Because the truth is, you were never called to be an example. You were called to be a testimony. And that testimony does not come from your words, but from your life. As the world turns its eyes toward you, remember, this is not a reward, it is a mission. Everything you have lived was not meant to make you great, but to give others hope. Each time you share your story, someone in the dark will realize they too can rise. That is the purpose of light, to multiply life. One afternoon, as sunlight streams through your window, you suddenly understand that nothing in your life was wasted. Every tear that ever fell helped create the light you now carry. Without fire, there would be no ashes. Without ashes, there would be no dawn. You no longer need proof of God's love. Your very breath is proof enough. You no longer fear the light. You no longer see it as a burden. You stand within it, not as a victor, but as a vessel. And you understand, this is only the beginning. For true light does not end by shining. It begins there. When you close your eyes, you hear His voice once more, deep, clear, and full of love. Now go. Let my light shine through you, not in your words, but in your presence. Live as the prayer I placed within your heart. And so you walk forward, without fear, without hesitation. The light is no longer around you. It flows from within you. Because now, you do not just carry the light, you are the light. When the light within you begins to spread, the darkness also rises, not to destroy you, but to test whether your light is true. The recognition you once thought was a reward now feels like a weight. Applause mingles with doubt. Those who were once silent now begin to whisper, watching every step, every word you speak. They try to pull you down, not because you have done wrong, but because your light forces them to face the darkness they have avoided. You will hear harsh words, criticism, and judgment. But in the midst of it all, God speaks softly. Do not be afraid. This is the part I designed to refine you. He allows the opposition, not to harm you, but to strengthen your soul. He wants you to learn how to stand in the storm without losing your peace. Psalm 27:1 reminds you, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" When you remember that, every attack becomes powerless. For no one can extinguish the flame God Himself has lit. Yet within this trial, there is a subtler storm, the one inside. When all eyes are on you, when praise and criticism intertwine, you will feel the temptation to be understood, to defend yourself, to protect your name. But God whispers, "You do not need to defend my light. True light needs no justification." And once again, you learn the lesson of silence. Not silence from weakness, but from wisdom, knowing that not every battle requires words. Some nights you grow tired, looking around and asking, "Am I doing the right thing, Lord?" In that moment, He answers not with thunder, but with something small, A soul touched by your story. A stranger saying that your words made them believe again. Just one sign, but enough for you to know He is still working through you. Even when you are criticized or forgotten, He is still writing something greater through your life. In this stage, the inner circle, the circle of chosen souls, begins to form around you, not through seeking, but through resonance. These people are not drawn to your light. Their own light recognizes it in you. They do not come to admire, but to walk beside you. These are souls who have faced their own darkness, who do not need explanations, only presence. When you meet them, you will know, because the connection is wordless. A quiet stillness, as if all are listening to the same heartbeat from heaven. But to step into this inner circle, you must overcome the final trial of the ego, the trial of power. When you are given influence, you will be tested. Will you use it to control or to liberate? The clever shadow no longer comes as fear. It comes dressed as mission. It whispers, "You can change the world if people follow you." But God teaches, "You can only change the world if you lead them back to me." And that is the line between the chosen and the self-exalted. Psalm 62:6 echoes in your heart. "Truly, He is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken." That verse becomes your anchor when you feel lost between praise and blame. Because you know, if your light is real, it does not depend on the world's approval, but on God's grace. As you hold firm in faith, the number 777 begins to appear in dreams, in passing moments, in the smallest details. 777 is the seal of spiritual awakening, the number of divine completion. It is a sign that you have passed the old lessons and are ready to step into a higher frequency where your soul and your calling become one. 777 is also the message that heaven and earth are aligning through you, that you are no longer searching for the light, you are becoming it. If you feel your soul resonate as you hear this, let that number be written on your heart as a covenant between you and the one who chose you. Even so, light is not a destination. It is a journey. You will keep walking, learning to love deeper, forgive wider, and let go faster. Each new challenge is not to break you, but to expand your soul. And the further you go, the more you see. Every wound, every misunderstanding, every act of resistance, all are simply shadows of the light. Without shadow, light cannot be seen. One evening, you sit alone in a quiet room. No applause, no noise, just a soft lamp and the steady beat of your heart. You realize you are no longer afraid of silence. You know it is home. You close your eyes and feel light spreading from your chest, warm, gentle, steady. You hear His voice. You have come far, but the road ahead is long. Keep this light, not for yourself, but for the souls still searching. And then you understand. Being lifted is not glory, it is responsibility. Not to be praised, but to be entrusted. You are lifted to love, to forgive, to shine into the places others fear to look. So when the world continues to talk, you simply smile. Because you know you no longer need to prove anything. You are not the message, you are the evidence. In that light, you stand firm. Amid the noise of the world, you hold the peace of heaven. And deep within, you know this is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of true transformation, where the soul is called not merely to be seen, but to become the embodiment of love itself. After walking through the trials of light and shadow, something strange begins to happen. You no longer feel the same loneliness as before. The silence no longer feels like a desert, but like a field ready for harvest. In the midst of what seem like ordinary days, people begin to appear quietly, purposefully. They step into your life as if they have known you forever, as if this meeting had been written into the covenant of your souls long ago. You look at them and realize something. These are your people. They have not come to save you, nor do they need you to lead them. They have come to remember with you that all were chosen and all are awakening together. No one needs to say much. Between you is an unspoken understanding, a shared frequency that words cannot reach. When they tell their stories, you see yourself in them, the same wounds, the same turns, the same divine signs that only those who have walked through darkness can recognize. You begin to see that God is doing something far greater. He has not chosen only you. He is calling forth an entire generation of souls, those who were misunderstood, rejected, those who thought they had lost their way, to rise together and ignite a new era of light. Psalm 133:1 echoes in your heart. How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. Those words speak not only of friendship, but of spiritual resonance. When purified souls meet, they do not just share faith, they activate each other. The light in one awakens the light in another. And from that, a sacred community is born, not built on doctrine or hierarchy, but on truth, freedom, and love. You call them the Soul Tribe. They differ in age, language, and background, yet they recognize one another by heart. In a world full of illusion, they are the bearers of true light. No one tries to teach, because all are both teacher and student. They come not to compare, but to illuminate. They love without demand, help without recognition, and pray without ritual. In their presence, you finally feel what you have sought for years, a home for the soul. This meeting is no accident. It is the reward of your solitude. Every season you thought you were separated from the world was time spent learning to stand strong, so that when you met them, you would not cling, but could give freely. There is no need to possess, only the natural exchange of energy. When you speak, they listen with their souls. When you are silent, they understand with their hearts. And in that connection, you feel God more vividly than ever, not through a church, not through symbols, but through the unity of soul with soul. In that sacred moment, the number 777 appears again, this time not as a personal sign, but as a collective confirmation. 777, the number of spiritual perfection, the seal of the awakened soul. It signals that divine energy is linking those who share the same frequency of light, so they may fulfill their mission together. When you see that number, know this: you are no longer walking alone. Each soul in the tribe carries a piece of the greater design, and when they unite, the picture becomes whole. You begin to understand the purpose behind every trial. Not one tear was wasted. Every pain you endured taught you how to feel, how to understand, how to love those like you. For only those who have been broken know how to lift others without judgment. God has turned your wounds into instruments of healing, and now, within this soul tribe, you become a bearer of fire. Not the fire of teaching, but of presence. One day, as you sit with these new brothers and sisters, no one speaks. You all simply listen to the wind and to your breath. Then you realize something miraculous. This is the true church God promised. No walls, no pulpits, no rules. Only light, love, and truth. A place where every soul can be fully itself. Where no one must hide pain or guilt. Where everyone is seen and loved. Psalm 34:3 seems to whisper through the air. Glorify the Lord with me. Let us exalt His name together. And you understand that when many souls vibrate in the same frequency of love, that is the most powerful prayer of all. No music, no ceremony, only unity in light. If you are hearing this and your heart begins to open, perhaps this is the invitation meant for you. You are being called to be part of this community, not by joining, but by remembering. Let your light resonate with the light of others. Share, comment, speak of the signs and numbers your soul feels connected to, not to prove, but to affirm that you too are awakening. Because when we recognize one another, the light spreads faster, stronger, farther. And then, in the stillness of the night, when you pray again, you no longer say, Lord, please don't leave me alone, because now you know He never did. He was leading you through the night so you could witness the dawn with those who carry the same song. You are no longer lost. You are surrounded by a chorus of awakened souls, singing the same melody, the song of love, of freedom, of light. This is the true family. This is the true church. This is the fellowship of the called, the gathering of souls chosen for light. And as you stand among them, you finally understand your solitude was never wasted. Without it, you would never have known the beauty of the divine unity that God destined for you from the very beginning. When every trial is complete, when the fire has burned away all illusion, when light and shadow have found their balance, you stand in life with a new awareness. Everything is grace. There is no longer a line between loss and blessing, between laughter and tears, between solitude and unity. They are all notes in the same divine symphony. And you, the chosen soul, are one of its melodies. You no longer need to search. You have found him not in the heights, not out there somewhere, but here, in this breath, in every heartbeat, in every person you meet. Now you understand that awakening is not a destination, but a state of presence. You do not need to leave the world to live in the Spirit. You remain among people, among work, among noise, but carry within you a stillness that cannot be shaken. Every look, every action, every word becomes a bridge between heaven and earth. When you speak love, God hears. When you forgive, heaven opens. When you walk, the ground becomes holy. Psalm 37:4 reminds you, "Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." And you realize that the heart's true desire is no longer success or recognition, but wholeness, to live in alignment with your soul, to love, and to be light. Everything else is simply an extension of that blessing. You no longer ask when or worry how, because you know God's timing is always perfect. You simply walk quietly, each step a declaration of faith. One morning, as the sun rises, you see the world in a new light. There is no boundary between the sacred and the ordinary. Everything shines. Everything breathes with His presence, from the dew on the grass to the eyes of a stranger. You feel the current of divine energy moving through all things, connecting every soul like an invisible river flowing through creation. And in that moment, you understand. You were not chosen merely to be seen, but to help others see. The number 999 appears no longer as a promise, but as a seal of completion. 999 marks the end of a cycle and the beginning of another. It tells you that your walk through darkness is over, and now you are being invited into the season of sacred service. You no longer need to prove who you are, for the world will recognize you by your actions. You have become a living testimony of transformation, mercy, and light. If this number touches your soul, share it as a sign that you too are in your season of completion. For every soul that sees 999 is being prepared for a new beginning, not to conquer, but to serve. Now you no longer struggle to keep your faith. Faith has become your breath. You no longer try to be the light. You simply are the light. You no longer seek for signs, because everything around you is a sign. When you see someone in pain, you no longer ask, "Lord, why don't you help them?" You quietly understand, you are helping through me, and so you reach out, you listen, you embrace, you speak words placed in your mouth by God Himself. You've become His vessel, no longer resisting the flow, but allowing it to move through you. Psalm 91:1 resounds as the final affirmation. Whoever dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall rest under the shadow of the Almighty. Now you know that the secret place is not about hiding away, but about living in the world with your heart hidden in Him. When storms rise, when people change, when the world trembles, you remain still, not because you are strong, but because you are one with His love. There is no more distance, no more separation, only oneness, Him in you, and you in Him. As you look ahead, you no longer see fear. You see light blooming, the light God desires to send through you. Through every act of kindness, every gentle word, every authentic moment, you understand that fame and recognition are not rewards. They are tools for light to reach farther. God did not make you visible to glorify you, but to glorify Himself through you. One day, someone will look at you and say, "There is something in this person's eyes that makes me believe." And you will smile quietly, because you know what they see is not you, but Him within you. You have walked through fire, crossed through water, endured silence, faced trials, and stood again. Now you are joined with eternal light, not as a single flame, but as part of the sun, where all awakened souls shine together as one. So if you are hearing this, take a deep breath. Remember, your journey does not end here. Every breath you take continues a sacred story. And if your soul feels it is time to step out, to share, to love, to forgive, do it. Leave a prayer, a reflection, or simply the number that is calling your name. For when you do, you help the light expand. God does not need perfect people. He needs willing hearts. And you, the one hearing these words, are one of them. And as you close your eyes, you hear that familiar whisper, gentle as wind, yet mighty as thunder. I have chosen you. And now it is time for the world to see me through you. This is the ending, but also the beginning. Because when the light merges with you, God is no longer only in heaven, He is within you. And so, the journey of the chosen begins again. Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.